Hey, I'm Sarah, and today I am talking to you from the beautiful Sarajevo in Bosnia. I just got here yesterday on a few-day solo trip by myself as I'm making my way to Croatia for the month, living the month in Split. And I've been traveling for the last 8 months through a program called Remote Year. It's actually structured as group travel, so I have about 30 people who I'm traveling with. However, I opted out for about like a month and a half and traveled by myself through Asia for 5 weeks because it was really important for me to get that experience by myself. And I also am kind of like known in the group as someone who just likes to go off and do her own thing, whether it's just like some day exploring, going to a coffee shop dinner by myself, or weekend and week-long trips like this. I've done it basically in almost every country that we've gone to so far for the last 8 months. So I wanted to share 3 tips that I've learned as a female who has done lots of international trips by herself, because the more I travel and the more I do it, I honestly am just getting frustrated by how few women I see alone in hostels at the same rate that I see men. So, for example, I was staying alone in a hostel in Seoul, South Korea, which was amazing, but it's like I'm in a room, a shared room, and I'm the only woman in there. And it's just like, why aren't there more women who I know they would love it, I know they would enjoy it, like what's holding them back? And I know there's lots of reasons and it's not easy to be able to go off and do your own solo travel trip, but I want to share tips. So one of the reasons isn't that you yourself are holding yourself back and thinking that you can't, because you can. So 3 tips as a female solo traveler. Honestly, these could probably be applied to men too. You're welcome to hear, but you know, if we're being honest, there are different precautions we need to take as women, especially myself. I've been traveling through Asia, South America, like places where I obviously do not look like a local and I very much stand out and don't fit in. So 3 tips. Number 1 is just have the confidence that you can do it. I want to meet more. I've met so many female travelers by themselves as I've been going, some just doing a week or 2 by themselves, some doing an entire year. Just so many awesome women. It's 100% possible. I met someone who went through India by herself. I met people who have been in Asia by themselves, Europe, South America. Like, it's all possible. You definitely need to be smart, think about it, and only do what's comfortable to you, but that will come in my next 2 tips. But just first tip is you can do it. It is possible to do it and be safe. And my tip, especially related to having the confidence to do it, is start small. If you're worrying about it, if you're stressed about solo travel in general, and then extra worried about just being alone as a woman, start small. My first ever solo trip was going to Vienna, Austria for a weekend, because I had gone to Romania for a work trip actually. And since I was already over in Europe, I was like, you know what, let me just go off by myself to somewhere that's close, easy to get to, that I've never been to, but it was only 4 days, so like I knew I could get through it in my mind, and that led me to have the confidence to do a longer trip after that, and a longer trip after that. So if you don't already have the confidence, hopefully hearing my stories and also starting small will help you get there. Second tip is to pay that extra money in certain cases to make sure you are being safe. So I definitely am stubborn when it comes to money and traveling. I actually have a decent amount of money. I'm working full-time while I travel, so it's not a huge issue for me, but I'm just stubborn as hell. So I always want to get the cheapest deals just because I feel like I'm wronged if I'm paying more than I feel like I should, like personally wronged. However, when it comes to safety, this is an area where it's so worth paying like an extra $20 for whatever you're doing to make sure you're not going to be worried about the safety. Like, your safety and your health and all these things are worth the little extra money. So an example of this, I actually heard this in a different women travelers video, and it was such a good tip, which is, and I've done it ever since then, and I fully agree, which is pay a little extra to get a flight that doesn't get in super late at night. So when you're trying to find good travel deals, you're gonna find flights that get in at like midnight for way cheaper than ones in the middle of the day. And immediately you're gonna wanna do that. But what happens is you get to an airport, it's dark, it's late at night, maybe the public transportation isn't running anymore, maybe there's not as many Ubers, or Grabs, and maybe you're not even in a country where those exist. And so you're a woman by yourself, you like have to trust a taxi, which aren't always safe. You have to go out into the streets by yourself, and maybe people are yelling at you to get a car. Like, these are things that it's just better if you kind of avoid that. And so I never stress, because I know if I'm getting into an airport around 4 or 5 p.m., there's going to be so many people around. There's going to be people who can help me figure out where to go. It's light out. Everything is just better when it's not dark and it's not late at night. So pay that extra money to not fly in super late into an airport, especially, I mean, I think always, but especially if this is a city and a country you've never been to before. And another example of this is I kind of switch up between doing hotels, hostels, and Airbnbs, just depending like what I'm in the mood for and what the city vibe is like. But one thing I do is when I'm in the mood for an Airbnb, because I kind of want my own kitchen and I want it to feel a little bit more like a home rather than a hotel or a hostel, I will always try to get one in a high-rise building. So it's more of like an apartment to myself, but it's an apartment rather than a house. And this is because like that way I know I'm always gonna have a doorman or some type of security, or even if I don't, I know that there's other people on my floor, other people around me. I'm not walking by myself late at night into a house or an apartment where like there's not really other people around. And in some places it's fine. If you feel comfortable doing that, that's fine. But just for me, I always, if I'm by myself, I'm gonna feel a little better if I'm getting into an elevator with like 20 floors, because the chances that someone's following me or potentially like breaking in, like, is just lowers the chance that it's gonna happen to me when I'm in a building with so many other people. So I really like to do that when it comes to Airbnbs and just like typical things, hostels, hotels, like pay a little bit more to be in the popular tourist area or a popular neighborhood. Check the Google Maps. Like I usually will, I don't always book the hotels and hostels that are like listed as the most popular in various articles. But what I'll do is I'll look up those, because that tells me what neighborhood is most popular or what area is probably going to be super busy. And then I'll make sure that wherever I'm staying is close to that most popular hotel or hostel. So that way I know I'm going to be on a pretty popular street and not like late at night walking home alone. And so that kind of relates to the third tip, which has kind of gone in all of the tips a little bit I've said so far, which is just trusting your gut. If something feels off, don't think you're crazy. Don't start this negative self-talk of like, it's probably fine. Why am I being paranoid? Like, just trust your gut. Worst case scenario is your gut is right and you didn't trust it. It's not that bad if you trusted it and it turns out to be wrong. Like if you're feeling a little sketchy in a certain part of the neighborhood, leave that neighborhood. If you're feeling like someone might be following you, if someone is, being a little too extra friendly when they're talking to you on the street or at a restaurant, like maybe they're being friendly, maybe you're right and something weird is going on. Just trust your gut. Like you don't need to be a jerk or dramatic, but just slowly remove yourself from the situations, slowly cross the street, slowly do whatever you need to do to feel a little bit better. There's no reason to feel guilty for just being on the lookout and being safe. And an example of that is like, I just make sure to set my own boundaries based on like my gut and what I feel comfortable with. So I like to go out, I like to go to bars, I like to like have a glass of wine at dinner. But when I'm traveling by myself, I don't do those things. And yeah, I mean, I'd like to see the nightlife in places, but it's just something that trusting my gut. I know how people can get a little handsy when they've had a few drinks in them. I know that I can also get more like in the mindset of like, yeah, whatever, let's do whatever. When I have been drinking, I'm more likely to stay out late, all these things. And so like my boundaries, trusting my gut and the boundaries that I set when I'm traveling alone, I just decide I don't go to bars at night, and that's okay with me. I make up for it in other experiences in the city, and I can always go back with people if I want to. So I'm not saying that you should set that rule for yourself, but I'm saying that you should 100% trust your gut, don't feel bad about it, and set whatever boundaries make you feel comfortable as a female solo traveler, because no matter what, those boundaries are serving you because they're letting you go to amazing parts of the world and just experience the amazing benefits you get from traveling alone. Like, I can do a whole separate video on this, but I truly believe it's one of the top ways I've built confidence as a person. It's one of the top ways I've come to just love myself so much. One of the top reasons I love traveling. It's just an incredible experience that I would not want other women out there to miss out on, because they don't feel like they can, they don't feel confident, or they don't know how. So hopefully these 3 tips of starting small to gain confidence and knowing that you can do it, being willing to spend a little more money in the cases that are really going to make a difference for your safety, and trusting your gut and setting whatever boundaries are right for you will hopefully help you to, take that first solo trip you've been thinking of, go on the next longer one that you've been thinking about, and just give it a try. So happy to answer any questions or hear other tips that you may have in the comments below.